Hello, this is Ali from Cali giving you the tea on what group experiences are truly like for most people. If you are a behavioral health provider, or if you're someone who has heard about treatment such as outpatient treatment, residential treatment, and you're not too familiar with it, or you just want to know the true tea about the group experience, I'm gonna break it down for you right now. Again, my name is Ali from Cali, Ali White. I'm a counselor in the behavioral health field. What made me interested in starting groups was actually my own experience going through treatment after a very, very difficult, kind of scary time. I had no idea what treatment was like. I just knew I was open and there were these promises made, and I said, that sounds like a place where I can heal. And there were a lot of benefits that I got from it. And as someone who's done hundreds of groups each year, worked with hundreds of clients, in 1 week, I literally did 11, never did that again. But as someone who has just had so much exposure to groups, I can give you the tea. And the clients, I work in a field where the clients are no BS, okay? It's just straight shooting. They tell me the tea on everyone else's groups. They tell me the tea on mine, and it's usually like, wow, you're amazing. Okay. Not because I'm so special, I am, but the main thing is I am just a very skilled facilitator because I bring in so much creativity, so much interaction, and also just very valuable insight. Most groups, well, first of all, let's talk about the setup. You go to this group, it's scheduled at a certain time. And if you're in residential, you're living there, so these groups are scheduled at a certain time, and there's a topic for each group. Who is it led by? It may be led by a counselor, therapist, mental health worker, maybe a psychologist, maybe a nurse, someone with some sort of credential, and maybe even a behavioral health tech in the facility, someone who has been given permission to run a group on specific topics. The topics usually range from anything to help you self improve, right? Whether it's discussing better ways to manage anger, grief, codependency, CBT, self care, those kind of topics, which are topics that I love. And yeah, there's a topic, and you sit in a group. So this is the part where things can go very, very left. The majority of my facilitators, when I was in treatment, it was kind of like, huh? But the beautiful part about the group process, and the part that was special to me, it's the other participants. And that's where a lot of y'all facilitators, I'm not calling you a facilitator because y'all be lazy and just hopping in groups and doing the bare minimum. You're not really facilitating, you're just there. So for the people who are just there, who are assigned as the person running the group, whether they're actually running it or not, they often think that they're doing something because the people in the group are connecting and they're talking and discussing. But really, they're talking with each other and they're responding to each other, which there is a therapeutic benefit to that. But also, and I know this from both sides, talking to clients, being a provider, being in groups, they also actually want the facilitator to do something. I know that may sound like a shocker to some of you guys because you were taught, let the group run itself. No, I made a video on this. No. Okay, stop wasting people's times. My treatment program was literally thousands of dollars a day just for me to be there, and my insurance didn't even want to cover it. Okay, I'm not even going to tell you about how bad of shape I was in because I was pretty much like someone who was like pulled out of a freaking sewer. A sewer rat walking in there, okay? I was still cute though. But yeah, so I was just really beat up. And I had, my first group was really excellent. And this was just a facilitator who's a natural. But she was really good, and she wasn't, I apologize, I accidentally ended the video. But what I was saying is that facilitator wasn't even done with school yet. She was in a grad program. I remember she was going to school to be a therapist. And she was better than so many people there. And I also had techs that were okay, but they weren't trained how to do groups. They just shadow groups, and then they finally get the confidence to do it themselves. That's not training, okay? And by the way, Don't try to tell me that you train your facilitators at your facility, because I've worked at many facilities. I know many people in this field, okay? I know people who really work in this field, and I also know people in programs, graduate programs, drug and alcohol counseling programs, peer support specialists. I know the tea. Can't get around me. Okay? So if we're sitting in a group and we may have a great facilitator who actually gives insight, who's actually running a group and doing something, then that makes a great group. And then sometimes the participants, a big thing is you got to handle those participants. I've had such an incredible experience working with clients. I literally missed it so much that I got another job. I tried to facilitate at some facilities, didn't work out, didn't happen. So I just got another job because I miss my clients. So they're awesome. Most people that you're going to come across they're absolutely amazing, but it depends on the facility. Facilities that are set up and are off the chain, and the clients will be set up being off the chain. But if it's a decent facility and they enforce boundaries, allow you to enforce boundaries, then it'll be cool. Most people are freaking awesome, but you may have that one person who's starting to act up. And these facilitators, because they're not trained, and therapists are the worst with this, because they confuse being therapeutic with being harsh. Setting boundaries is a therapeutic intervention, actually. And no one can change behavior if there's no guardrails that are going to prevent them from doing the behavior that's dysfunctional, right? Okay. So there's so many group experiences where like I said, the participants are running the group. The person is just there. Let me get a notebook. Oh, I'm dropping stuff. The person is there just like with their notebook or their clipboard or their worksheet. And they'll say like, okay, so these are the 3 P's of anxiety. And they'll read them off. The first P is whatever. The second P is so-and-so. The third P is whatever. Can you relate to any of these 3 P's? Anyone? And then me, I'm going to speak up because I'm in my freaking program. I'm not wasting a day in this program. I'm not wasting a group. I want to get better. Yeah, I can relate to P number 2, and I would be giving so much insight. That's why literally while I was in treatment, the other girls said you should be running these groups. And I wasn't doing it to give insight. I was just reflecting on whatever they were saying because they obviously weren't going to say anything helpful. Why are you here? Let me tell you about the purpose of the group. Okay, I'm not telling you to become a lecturer. I'm not telling you that class is in session in terms of students sit down, shut up, listen to me. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying this is a seminar. This is not a revival. It's not any of that. But you have to have some sort of foundation for your group, and you can't be a good facilitator without actually practicing facilitating. Asking a question and then saying, who's next, is not facilitating. That is just being there and managing, or that's just being there and directing conversations a little bit. And then so many facilitators let someone take over the whole group or gets totally off track. We're talking about codependency, and all of a sudden, it's okay to have human conversations and jump from topic to topic if it's natural and it ties it back in. Even jokes, right? But if we're talking about codependency, why are we talking about the history of Apple and Steve Jobs for 45 minutes? That should never happen. But facilitators feel like, oh, this is a good group because they're talking, and that is not facilitating. So that's what a lot of experience it is in groups. They're just like, where's my notebook? Yeah, okay. What about you, Emma? Can you relate to what Ali just said? Oh, no, I can't really relate because I am only 32 years old. Okay. So you're 32? Yeah, anyone else? That is not facilitating. Let me show you how it's done. I don't even have the people here to do it. Here's how it's done. All right, guys, today we're talking about the three P's of anxiety. Allie from Cali, I'm back. First of all, the first step in facilitating a group, temperature check. First of all, how y'all doing today? How y'all doing? I know we have a couple new people, but some of you have been in the program for a while. How you feeling? Good, good, good. Everyone will say good. Then this is really a key, major key. I'm gonna give you this for free. Have a warm-up question. I am literally one of the few people who do this. Some people do it intuitively, but I specifically have a warm-up question. One of my favorite questions are, on a scale of 1 to 10, how optimistic are you feeling? People are like, huh. A lot of people will say in the middle. Some people will say 1, some people will say 10, but it's just a temperature check. And it's not to start therapizing and counseling and digging deep into that. I will teach you in Fire Facilitator course when to do that in the beginning, but you don't want to get caught up and stuck in the warm-up when we've got the material to go over. Okay, so that's the temperature check. Brian, today I feel probably 6 to 7 because 6, 7, probably 6 to 7 because, yeah, my wife and I are on better terms, but I still physically am adjusting. Okay, Brian. Thank you. Okay, so thank you guys for checking in, and I will actually do a lot of times do my temperature check as well. And that is when you actually check the temperature. It's not just asking a warm-up question for the sake of asking a freaking question. Now you have to fill into the group, hear what people said, and understand how you're going to approach the material that you prepared in advance. How are you actually going to use this material to execute the group, which you should have already had a plan for that, but you'll have to shift your plan based on the temperature check. Okay, so today we're talking about the 3 P's of anxiety. The first one is personal. What I mean by, here's another thing. You should have your educational material ready. So when it comes to personal, here's what I got from Aaron T. Beck's article about the P number 1 of anxiety. He said this. This is a quote from Aaron T. Beck. I love Aaron T. Beck, by the way. Love his research. Read so much about his research. Okay. And he said this. So when I first heard this, here's what I thought. I thought, wow, I really loved how he connected it to past experiences, how our present experiences really connect with our past ones. And while we may be feeling anxiety now, maybe it's not even connected to the most traumatic experience, but maybe it's just something from a few weeks ago or even something from last year that we just moved on because, life continues to happen. Life continues to move on, but there are certain times where we really need to sink in and sit with our feelings. But when we're just on the hamster wheel of life, we keep going and that lives in our minds. So one example of this is if you had a really weird, awkward job interview and you just try to pretend like it never happened. If you don't process that with safe people, and you could even process it with yourself through stream of conscious journaling, that's still going to be in your heart. So how could that can look in your life day to day is all of a sudden you just feel a little bit awkward and uncomfortable because that feeling is still in your body and you haven't moved through it. And so I want you guys to talk about one instance recently in the past 6 months that wasn't a super traumatic experience, but something that was awkward and uncomfortable. And we're just going to start there. We're going to start unpacking that because there is a correlation between those experiences and how they feel now. And even if you don't feel like it's why you're being anxious, we still want to kind of process it just to practice that skill. Okay, let's start with Alyssa over here. Hi, Alyssa here. I can think of a time when I was talking to my mother and I was trying to share with her my dream. And I usually don't tell her about my goals and plans because I know how she's been in the past. But yeah, she was just making me feel pretty negative, and she kind of honestly in less words, said that that was a stupid idea. And as we're talking about this now, I'm starting to realize like how much that made me angry. Dot dot dot. Okay, blah blah blah. That's important, but yeah, moving on. Yeah, and then give your insight about what Alyssa said, tying it back to the material, and then you should have a structure for feedback before you start the group. It's part of the group rules. But saying like, yeah, well, Alex, I remember last week when you told me that you move in silence. Like you don't tell anyone anything. And I'm sure you could kind of relate to what Alyssa was saying because yeah, we've spoken about that before, but you've learned the hard way and you don't do that anymore. Yeah, do you have any similar experiences to Alyssa that you can share? Okay, that is facilitating. And you may think that the clients don't want that. You're wrong. You're wrong. There's another, especially, excuse me, in my industry, there's this false idea. First of all, people, no matter what your background is, whether you've been through a crazy life, whether you were a crime in the past, there are so many professional people who have completely turned their lives around. And then there are unprofessional people who work in my field who turn their lives around. Not really. They just say that they did. And that's so accepted in my field. It drives me to no end. And it's like, no matter what background people come from, no matter if they could have just got off the streets yesterday, they still want someone professional. You could have different different educational backgrounds. You could have a non-traditional background and be someone who really most of your life was, spent screwing up and you've turned things around. It's not about being cookie cutter corporate. It's not about that. They don't like that either. But real people who have something to add, not just you sitting there and you're running a group. You ain't doing nothing. First of all, let me get some water. You are not doing anything. And it's so frustrating. Clients get frustrated with this, okay? Some of you have referred to your clients as patients. Patients, they get frustrated by this. They don't like it. The groups suck. So many people's groups suck. And I want you, if you're a provider watching this, step it up. Like, stop playing with playing in their faces. Stop playing with their treatment experience. And there's so many places, like when I was guest facilitating, this was made so clear to me even more, even though I know it was already true, but clear in a different way because I'm popping in. They're like, who are you? Like, why aren't they doing groups like this all the time? Like, you're only here once a week. You need to come more often. I'm like, I'm not coming more often. I got a job. Don't tell nobody. Well, that's over. But I just wanted to give this demonstration because it blows my mind. After my first few excellent groups at treatment, and I don't know if that was just beginner's luck. I don't know if it's just when I got there, the day that I got there. And then there were so many groups, I'm like, why am I here? I could have been upstairs working on my laptop. Because I'm getting better. After a few days of clearing my mind, I'm getting better. I'm ready to go back out there. Actually, no, I wasn't ready to go back out there, but I started dreaming again. I started being optimistic again because my mind, my body, my soul was healing. Okay, I'm going to leave it there because this is kind of a non-traditional video. I don't want to drag it on and on. But guys, go to seedsofgenesis.com, provider resources. I have resources for providers, and then I have a mentorship program called Fire Facilitator. Okay, I need you to step it up. So this program is only for people who want to step it up. If you're new to the field or if you were never trained, which you weren't, because I know. But if you were never trained and you actually care, because a lot of people don't care. Facilities are like, we could still bill. It doesn't matter what they did in there. As long as they didn't cuss nobody out. And actually, sometimes if they do, they still can bill. And that person still works there years later. They didn't insult nobody. As long as you didn't, if you weren't caught, like, being on a date with a client, that's like, they're still going to bill. Like, it has to be the most extreme circumstances for them to be like, okay, we need to move this person. We need to course correct. Mediocrity is not something that flags a lot of facilities. They don't care, okay? They don't. But you know what? These are people's lives. And if you don't care, know that the judgment of God is coming, because these are people's real lives who want to get help. And even if people end up being there because it's court mandated or because intervention and ultimatum, whatever, they still don't want to waste their time. And so facilities have to wait to the most extreme circumstances to say, oh, we're doing something different. And then it's like the same thing. Thank you for watching. Information in the description box. Signing out.